What up, fam? This is Dr. Day Luna, and you are listening to Drop It Like It's Doc podcast. Today, I have on Azimah. She is an incredible coach who works with women on mindfulness, movement, and deepening their relationship with their body and sexuality. We're talking all about the things that your mama did not talk to you about. So listen up, learn, dive in, and ultimately fall deeper in love with yourself. Hello, beautiful Azimah.
Hello.
I am over the moon. That we are even sitting at a table together, that we are now friends, and that you are on this podcast because you are someone that I don't even know how I first saw you. I think it was honestly on social media, and I just needed to know you. So here we are.
Here we are.
Yay!
That's so synchronistic. I love it.
I know. I love it too. And I always start off this podcast by dropping a little love bomb as to why I invited you on. And, you know, our love is fresh, but it's already deep in that I always follow a pull of things that I am drawn to, and I was drawn to you, and we met in one of my favorite places, which is also one of yours, I'm assuming, a cacao shop. Maya Moon walked right up to you. I could feel your open heart. I could feel how open you were to connect with someone new. And then the first time that we spent together, just your ability to drop into your past, to share so vulnerably, openly, powerfully, it was so inspiring. And I am just so honored that you said yes to being here, and so honored that you are open to share your story with me and with all the beautiful people that are going to grow just from hearing your story.
Hell yeah. Such a pleasure to connect with you in that way too. I believe like one of your friends was speaking about some snaky movements, and you were like, ooh, I want to do some snaky movements, and then we just hit it off, and then I saw your Instagram and all the cool shit. I'm like, okay, I gotta be friends with her.
Yes.
Now here we are.
Here we are, divinely connected. Yes.
Exactly.
And you know, when I first wanted to connect with you, it was about movement, and I didn't even know that you had this just other side of your story that is all about, you know, sexuality and loving your body and releasing shame and just talking about the shit that no one else talks about, and all of those things I so admire, and it's just what the world needs, especially coming from a powerful, embodied woman.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Huge part of the journey, and I feel like it'd be kind of selfish to not share it. Right?
Yeah.
The way that it has helped me just reclaim me and connect with so many wonderful women on the same path to, like, why not spread the word far and wide everywhere.
So my babe, just because I just learned about your story, and I'm sure that a lot of my listeners will be hearing it for the first time, do you mind sharing a little bit about your life and how you ended up doing the work that you do? Because you're a coach, and I know that you wear many hats, so sprinkle in some wisdom as far as how you arrived here.
Okay. So a little bit about me and what I do now, and then I'll go into the story of it all. I'm a coach, both in coaching women through all kinds of things, intimacy, relationship, to sensuality, sexuality, and how to get clear on their own intuitive voice in navigating various life challenges. And I like to infuse movement as well, just as a way to get present and listening to your body, and also getting to know the sensations that come with emotions that come up when you're navigating various life challenges. And then I also coach jiu-jitsu. I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. I coach women's jiu-jitsu out at Victory MMA, and I have some courses around body awareness too, and that. And then other than that, lots of little exciting things as well that all contribute to all of this embodiment work. I like playing in all those spaces, and I dance and I play in various ways.
Yes.
So the story, where do I begin?
Anywhere you want.
So I hail from an island called Singapore, and I don't know if you guys know much of Singapore other than crazy rich Asians, but that's not an accurate representation of it. So, super small country, smaller than San Diego itself. So,
Oh, wow.
In my opinion, and my experience of Singapore is close-knit community. However, because of the way the government's run, and it's been that way for a long time, that people just tend to be a lot more like closed-minded and, you know, factor in Asian culture and everything, especially in the topics of like sex and intimacy and pleasure. We don't really talk about it openly. So growing up in that culture, and I also come from a Muslim family as well, sexuality, sensuality, pleasure has just never been a topic we discuss because it's pretty taboo, right? We just don't talk about it. And why I came into this work that I do, where I'm coaching women through their sensuality, relationship, sexuality, is because that was, for so long, something that was disconnected from me for a really long time, until maybe 2019, that I got into this kind of like rock bottom spiritual 4x4, where I realized, like, man, these old patterns of, you know, sexual compulsion or even sexual denial, or just all these different manifestations of how I was just coming from dysfunction, was just not working anymore. I just felt like part of me was just not connected, and I'm like, what is going on? And how come nobody showed me before? Like, what is going on? And that led me into this path of reclaiming that. And then I decided to move to San Diego to seek healing and community. It was just a calling that I had to lean into. And man, things just unraveled bit by bit over time. So that's like the quick summary of it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, happy to dive into the little bits as well.
Perfect. I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will. And I love that you followed the pull to San Diego, because you have found your community and a group of individuals that has just been hungry for the things that you've experienced and walked through and are now able to share. And I think that something that is so special about you is that even in the little bits that I've chatted with you, you are someone that holds a very safe container. And I think that in talking about something like sexuality or these things that, you know, are taboo, so often we don't give ourselves the freedom or the safety to talk about it. And I think that in doing that, that's just a huge disservice, because I like to remind my patients, you know, you actually came into this world by two people having sex.
Yeah. Right.
So we have to talk about it. It is in our DNA blueprint that we are sexual beings. But I would love to dive a little bit more also into what your religious upbringing was like and how that impacted sexuality, just because honestly, I was not raised with any religion, and it's something that, you know, there's positives and negatives to any way that we are raised and the different ways that we are shown is good or bad in the world. But I could imagine that laid down a foundation that you had to break through when you found your power in sexuality.
100% happy to. And I'm ready to. I think I've been wanting to speak about it for years and years, and finally feels like it's time. So let's start with like way back to like infant. And this is something that I only found out maybe 2 years ago, through just doing some inventory work and basically just asking God, what else is there? Because it feels like this 8-year-old incident isn't the first incident that started having me respond in a way that I must disconnect from my body, right? So then I came across this Vice documentary about female genital cutting in Singapore, and I like saw the video, and then I sent that video to my sister through Instagram, and I was just basically saying, you know, I'm glad Mama didn't take us through this. And then she was like, girl, but she did. And that tripped me up for a little bit. And it felt like all this, for the longest time, I didn't think I was an angry person. I just didn't think I had any rage or anger inside of me. I don't know, maybe I'm just soft and, you know. And then when I found that out, it's as if like this anger that was like buried in me for so long just suddenly started coming out. You know, all the feelings of betrayal and frustration, feeling like, you know, from the time that I was a baby, before I could even say no or voice out more than crying, before all of that happened, people already decided what I could do with my body or what my body was going to be, right? So there was a lot of rage that I had to process and move through, and I took a step back from like directly communicating to my mom just because I needed to like figure out what was going on. But a year later maybe, I got to have a conversation with her and got to see where her come from was, and just this realization that she just didn't have a voice to say otherwise, or didn't know that didn't know the actual consequences of that. But anyway, knowing that just made so much sense why most of my childhood, and these are stories that I heard from like my aunts and my relatives, how when I was a baby I would just harden myself up and not want to be touched. I would only want to look at my mom and dad. If I was like on a baby chair and facing someone else, I would freak the fuck out. Nobody else could carry me other than my parents. And so hearing that, I'm like, that's kind of strange, for a baby to like be in such this hyper alert shutdown mode. So that went on. As a kid, I was always kind of like feeling like the weirdo. I don't know, maybe I was just a sensitive baby. Period. I was still a sensitive baby. But I went through the whole Sunday school, Muslim version of Sunday school, where you don't. To sum up, like the female experience in the Muslim culture, I don't know, there's not a lot that is said in the Quran that just like speaks about women. Even when it comes to like our bleed, or when you've gone through puberty and you're bleeding, you can't enter the mosque. There are certain, you can't pray. You can't pray. So I think the messaging that gets fed into us is like, oh no, my body is dirty, my body is unclean. And then obviously the lack of education around how to navigate relationships with boys and how to create boundaries, how to even like understand the fucking hormones that are running through your body, instead of just like, oh shit, I'm dirty. And so in this state of like my bleed, I'm not welcome by God. Or and then there's the emphasis of obviously abstinence, that you gotta stay pure and whatever before you get married, or save your virginity until marriage. But what happened when I was sexually abused at 14, and where would I go? Who do I go to talk about these things without feeling wrong or bad or ashamed, or feeling like I was going to be cast out to hell if I were open and honest about it? So instead, all those experiences where I kind of sinned just led me further and further into disconnecting, pretending that didn't happen. And as that went on, and I think that contributes to just, I didn't know how to approach that conversation with my mom, because she wasn't really emotionally available in that way. She did provide in so many other ways, but maybe what I feel is that's a topic that she was never initiated to talk about either. So that cycle just kind of passed down of this like, let's just pretend everything's okay and just bury the shit that had happened to us, and just cover it up with the doings of like, okay, prayer and going to Sunday school, reading the Quran, blah blah blah, but never really addressing what was underneath. But shit was still happening that I didn't know how to handle or deal with, and as a kid, you're just kind of lost and confused. And I don't think it's wrong that, as I was growing up into adolescence, that, I started having curiosities about genitals, and like relationships and boys and all that. And I just didn't know how to navigate that. So I ended up looking in the wrong places. But, in hindsight now, I knew that I needed to go through all those experiences to get where I am now, right? As far as, I had to spend X amount of time feeling so disconnected with my body, like my soul was disconnected from my body, for me to realize that, man, I don't want to live like that anymore. It was, a long time of that, and it just felt numb and disconnected, and I don't need to be living in that way. I want to be fully here. You know what I mean? Yeah. So a lot of my adolescence, I think, as a result of that mind-body disconnection, that, manifested in like depression, anxiety, and, doctors giving me all these meds, SSRIs for all that stuff. I tried to control it with binge eating and then purging, and then try to control it even more by stepping out of disordered eating into a different kind of obsession through bodybuilding and all that shit. So it's a trip. It's a trip. It's a very roundabout way of trying to come back home to myself.
You are powerful, and your story is very powerful. And I think, every part of it we could dive into so deep, but just the overarching feeling that I get is just that you are doing the work, and that you have felt the things that your nervous system wouldn't let you feel because it was too painful to, right? Like you were a baby, like you said, you had no control over what happened to you, but your nervous system still remembered that, your body still remembered that. And then as we were raised with this religious upbringing with a lot of shame around sexuality, that shame has a lot of weight, and it holds things within that can't come to the surface for the fear of speaking out and then being shunned from your community. That's heavy. And the way that you spoke about, when you're bleeding and not being allowed to have access to God, that is so interesting to me, just because, I am quite spiritual. I don't know what I would call what I am connected to. I don't know what it is, but I feel so much more connected to it when I am bleeding. The veil is thin, and it's this time of darkness, but it's an internal light that is amidst that darkness. So it's interesting that how in these cultures and in these practices, women were not allowed to be a part of that just because they were bleeding. But of course, there's nothing wrong with our blood. Of course, we are not dirty. Of course, there's nothing shameful about our sexual experience and expression. But it's so fascinating that this is something that is ingrained in so many cultures, not just the culture that you were raised in. I mean, many women in my life that were born and raised in the United States have similar experiences. And it's women like you that are speaking up and being like, actually, that did not serve me at all. This is what I learned. I learned that I disconnected my brain and my heart from my body, and how you came back into it. And it's beautiful that movement was a big part of that. And I loved how even in the very beginning, when you were talking about the work that you do, about how you dropping into the body allows you to understand what emotions feel like in the body. Because I think if we don't know what they are, then we do try to control them with other things, because it's overwhelming until you let it out and you just don't give a fuck, and you cry and you scream and you let it out. And I love that you let yourself feel rage, because I'm a rage monster. So
wild welcome. Shit, just wild out.
Wild out. Yes, and it's like all the temper tantrums that maybe you couldn't have when you were younger. Oh, they now need to come out.
Exactly.
Yes.
So fucking good.
Smash that shit.
It feels so good to be able to just wild out. And oftentimes you don't even know what the emotion is about sometimes until you let it just go. And then you're like, it's kind of like, I don't know, what I would assume kind of like post-nut clarity. It's like post-rage clarity.
Yes, exactly. And it's this ridiculous release of adrenaline and neurochemicals that then your nervous system can finally find stability in after. And I think for some people it's easier to access sadness, and for some people it's easier to access anger, but to me they're very similar. They're the same. It's just whichever lens that you're looking through to feel it. Yeah. And something that my friends have told me, which is something that I'm really grateful for, is that my fire and my ability to be mad if something upset me allows them to feel more comfortable with their anger and being allowed to say it, because our parents shaped what we think is good or bad and what we're allowed to do and what we're not. But so often those things aren't even in alignment with our own needs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That just reminds me of like how jiu-jitsu has helped me in just channeling that fire Like I realized one time, I think between it, I was transitioning between blue belt and purple belt, where I realized I had this kind of like block, like mental slash body block when it came to rolling with more aggressive women or sparring with more aggressive women. Even if I was technically better and I knew it, like in the moment, I knew what to do. But because of the energy of that aggression, I just like noticed this like shut down. Like I knew what to do. I knew what my coach was yelling at me to do, but my body was just no. And that bothered me for a while. Like, what the fuck is going on? Do I not know jiu-jitsu? I'm like rolling with someone who's like brand new, and she's aggressive and I shut down. What's going on? And what I got to from that is remembering how when I was a kid, me and my sister, like my younger sister, are like 3 years apart. She's 3 years younger than me, and I don't know, she's just a lot more aggressive and fiery. Like when we were kids, she would like throw shit at me, bite the shit out of me. There's this
like,
one.
Am I your little sister? Just kidding.
Maybe. I have this one very distinct memory. We shared a queen size bed, right, with little kids, and I remember waking up from bed and just like turned this way and I accidentally like slapped her, right? And then she woke up thinking that I did that on purpose, so she fucking jumps me, mounts me, and then begins like fucking slapping the shit out of me. I was so confused. I just woke up. I just turned around to look at my sister. Next moment she's mounting me, slapping the shit out of me, and I was like crying. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I wanted to like fight back, and my mom came in. No, you're not allowed to be mad at Anissa. You can't be aggressive to your sister. You're a big sister. Be a good example, be a good role model or whatever. And I was like, fuck. And I think incidents like that had happened a lot, and I think I internalized that as like, oh, I shouldn't get angry or be mad because that won't get me my mom's love, right? And so I was like, oh, damn, maybe that experience was a little bit traumatizing for me as a kid. That's why it's like still showing up in my body. So what I did with that learning or discovery of where that came from is every time I stepped on the mat, kind of like using whatever my grounding tools were, my breath and intention, and also, again, connecting with my body through presence. I'm here. I'm not getting jumped by my sister. This is consensual, strangling each other and manipulating each other's limbs. This is consensual. It's fine. I'm here for this. And then I think over a period of a couple months of bringing that intention fully into practice, like I managed to break through that, and I was like, this is cool. And then I got my purple belt. I was like, yay, this is what it feels like. And this is why exactly when I coach jiu-jitsu for women, I make sure that it's a playful space, that open communication is there. If you notice someone mouth breathing and doing this faces as you're rolling, tell them to relax. It's okay. Remind them that they're safe, because that is just a clear indicator that you're somewhere else fighting for your life. And we learn the best when we're in play mode.
We do learn the best when we're in play mode. And when we're kids, that's how we're trying to learn. We're just playing around. And then we have these adults that we look up to. And, essentially we do depend on them for our survival. So what they say holds a lot of weight and a lot of value. And I love how you said that, you learned that to receive the love from your mother, you couldn't show up in that way to your sister. And that's just because you wanted love. But now you're an adult and you're aware that there's nothing that you could do that would make your mom not love you, because that's what parents are. And then you're recognizing that those patterns actually didn't serve you at all. But so much of what we do is based on this subconscious patterns of what we did when we were younger just to receive love. And it's so interesting when you see that through your adult frontal lobe that can then see it and release those patterns, because it drops you into your trauma, and your trauma it's like your brain is disconnected from your body when you're living in a trauma state. You get fully taken out. So whether you're aware of it or not, but I think you are, the work that you're doing is truly rewiring brains and creating new pathways and ultimately changing someone's life just by continuously coming back to this feeling of being safe and recognizing all the things that you do when you don't feel safe, because they're not you, they're just survival.
Yeah, those are just patterns that have served me for a really long time, but just I'm outgrowing them. And it feels good to, feel that rewiring. And now, as I'm rolling with all kinds of people, no matter what background or smells, that I'm still like present and available. It feels so fucking good when you've known X amount of your life, you've been so shut down and closed off and wanting to hide. Like, I remember being a teenager just wanting to hide. It was really difficult to even make eye contact with people. And here I am.
Soul gazing with me. Here you are with great eye contact. Yes. I know, the sweet little babies that just want to feel safe and protected. But now we're big babes. We're big babes.
Big babes.
Yeah. And something else that you brought up that I wanted to dive deeper into as well was just your relationship with sexuality and how you spoke to just the communication with yourself and other people that you're rolling with or working with on the mat. And I'm sure that a lot of women that you work with are learning for the first time how to communicate sexually with their partner.
Oh, yeah.
So I would love to just start to shift the conversation a little more sexy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do I begin?
Anywhere.
I think all of that shifted. This like deep dive for myself began when I moved to America. Wait, a little bit before moving to America. It was after a breakup. It was after a breakup. Good old breakup. Where that happened after me breaking some boundaries with my partner. He's now my husband, but at the time he was my boyfriend. No, we were engaged. And we were doing these couple months of exploring open relationship, because it just like made sense for me. Because in my past relationships, I'd just be serial cheating on other people. And that was honestly a pattern that I had seen with my dad. And so I kind of like took that on. Another part of it is, I think it was just me rebelling against my mom, because like I remember being a teenager, she had like come across some of my sexting or whatever, and she was like kind of like slut shamed me or whatever, and I was like, I'll show you, I'll be biggest fucking whore. Exactly, I'll show you. And then I just couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop past that. And then anyway, so then I realized how bad the selfishness was for me, in that I began to see how I was like constantly just like taking and taking and taking from people, and how I was denying that I was doing that. And that was when Eric, my husband, called me out on that shit. And he was really open and vulnerable with me about it. He wasn't mean about it. That's the weird part, because he wasn't mean about it when I was already expecting this like anger, rage, being like, told him a piece of shit and then like ghosting me and out of my life. Like it's almost like I was expecting that, but I was met with so much compassion and love. But this firm boundary, right? This boundary that he held up was not this prickly fence and where I'd be electrocuted. It's just like a declaration that he gets to be treated well, that we get to treat this relationship that we built sacred. And I'm like, fuck, I don't fucking know how to do that. I've never done that. I've never seen that in my life, and he's been in the recovery world for some time. He's been sober. At that time, I think he was sober 15 years. And so he's been in the work of 12 steps and like personal development for some time. So he could recognize in me what I couldn't for myself, right? But that being said, as much as I wanted to like, hold on, I believe I'm gonna heal myself and fix myself, we needed to take some time apart. So we were living in Thailand at the time, and after this trip where I went to essentially have like a sex bender, when I came back, my bags were packed, and he had held the boundary that, Azimah, you need to go get help, go get support for this. I love you, but it just hurts too much right now. And I'm like, fine. I see that. and then that me too moving back to Singapore, and because that was just such an important piece of me that I needed to heal and meet myself in, I like avoided like scrambling to get work, scrambling to like get my life together. Instead, just spend a lot of time just alone in my bedroom, just feeling all the grief, feeling all the what the fuck how did I get here, and then pretty much spent like 5 days out of 7 days a week just attending recovery meetings. And SLAA, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, was a meeting that was happening pretty frequently in Singapore, and I was like, I just gotta give it a shot. And so I went to, I remember my first meeting I went, and I was so fucking terrified because I'm like, I never thought I would identify as an addict because I never had problems with drugs and alcohol. Maybe that comes from just growing up in a Muslim household where there's none of that in the house. And it was so scary, but when I started hearing other people's shares, it was like, oh my God, I saw myself in all of them, whether they are male or female, like I saw me. And after like a couple of meetings attending, I finally started sharing, and then it felt so good to just be seen in your brokenness or whatever. And so I think over time that also just got my voice stronger. And in that, Eric and I were still communicating long distance. He had moved to the UK for a coaching stint for a little bit, and we were kind of keeping in contact. And it was beautiful to see how he was able to still hold me in so much love, with those boundaries too, that we decided to reconcile and go and meet each other again in New York like 3 months later. But we didn't end up staying in New York for multiple reasons, because it's cold as shit. and he's been here in San Diego. He lived in San Diego for 5 years when he was still fighting, and he knew of the recovery community here. He knew of like just wellness community here that could be of great support to the both of us. And so after maybe a month and a half in New York, we decided to come to San Diego, and then I continued the recovery work over here. But the funny thing was, when I got to the SLAA rooms here, it was kind of depressing, I'll be honest. It was pretty depressing. Like, there was no solution other than don't have sex.
Interesting.
Like, what? Oh, I'm interested in rebuilding a relationship with sex.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's the leadership that was around it, or the people that were involved in the program, but it just didn't seem like there was solution. And I think the way that they were going about it just didn't make sense for me to create certain bottom lines. So bottom line behaviors are pretty much the things that are the step below you acting out sexually in a way that is compulsive or dysfunctional, right? And it didn't make sense. If something is a compulsion, how are you gonna control it? By looking at your bottom lines, and that's just control, that's not freedom. And I'm like, I don't want this. But I did find a sponsor through another program that has done SLAA work, or sex and love addiction work, and I love her so much. I love her so much because she was just wild. She was like, Azimah, you're gonna do the things that you're gonna do until you're done with it. And I'm like, oh, I am. I am. So that's what happened. I got to like actually see where my obsessions went to, where my dysfunctional thoughts and patterns were existing, and all I could do was just be and look at it. And obviously that's the process of like inventory, where you look at how your actions and behaviors harm yourself and other people. And with all that awareness, like, I couldn't go back to doing it without, it would be selfish not to. And then and then being able to share that at the end with other people, like sponsoring other people, and On top of that, I think I told you this before, that I met Emily Abbott somewhere in between, because I was like, this program is kind of dry. It's not sexy at all. I'm trying to build a fucking healthy relationship, not, live the rest of my life as this fucking nun, you know? I just see myself doing that. And so, like, suddenly Emily walks into my life. And I remember our first meetup, we were like slacklining out in the OB Green, and we started talking about our pussies. Like right away, I'm like, I love this lady. And she was talking about like, self-vaginal massage and like rewiring pleasure from the inside out. And I was like, oh, I fucks with that. And then that's what I began to do, just like started exploring myself all over again, right? Like, okay, I knew where a lot of my traumas lied. And so how do I approach myself with such gentleness and actually give myself pleasure, open myself up to receiving pleasure that feels good just for me, And at the time, Eric and I were still patching things up. He was still, he needed some time to like begin trusting me again. So both of us were doing individual work as far as codependency goes and all that stuff. So we weren't very intimate during that maybe first year or two, like reconciling and everything. But I used that time to just get intimate with me and get clear with me and, my yeses and my nos that were not dependent on another person telling me to please them, And that was fucking the best thing that I've ever done for myself, And now I get to share that with other people because, I swear to God, like that disconnection and feeling like, all these years I've not known myself in such a deep level, thinking that I have, it really fucking destroyed me. There was a point where I was like, I don't even want to be here anymore, And it was until I started reconnecting myself, almost like experiencing God within myself, and I could like fucking, get to climax, and I'm like laughing and crying and like laughing and crying at the same time, like holy fucking shit. And this is just for me, and nobody can tell me that I can't experience this.
Yes.
Oh,
beautiful.
Saved my fucking life.
Yes. And you've said so many really gorgeous things in that last statement, and something that is clear to me is that in any relationship that we have, there really mirrors into our first relationship, which was that of our parents and how that was modeled. And let's be fucking real, that a lot of our parents weren't in love. They were not treating each other with love and respect. I mean, mine didn't. They didn't respect each other's boundaries, and love was not modeled in a way that I want to show up in a partnership, or even how I want to show up for myself. That wasn't modeled. And then you get all these relationships, all these partners that give you the opportunity to say, do you want to keep this pattern or do you want to break it? Do you want to keep this pattern? Do you want to break it? And I have a history of having a lot of friends and family members who have worked through addiction of other substances. And it does really fall to that point of, you're not done until you're done. And I could wish that they were done. I could pray that they were done. I could try to shame them into being done. I could try to hurt them into them being done, but it doesn't matter, because until that pattern breaks and until you can pull yourself out of the compulsion and say, this actually isn't something that I want to do, it's just going to keep happening until that is something that really you have the deep desire from yourself to break. And that is rooted in self-love. It's never rooted in shame, because usually shame just makes us want to hide. And then what feels good to us is anything that gives us dopamine, which are these things that we become addicted to. And that could be coffee, that could be a phone, it could be, a relationship, it could be anything that we do that with. So your story, I think, highlights a lot of that, in that you broke some of these patterns that were passed down, whether you were conscious of them or not. And then in the bottom of that, you found a love for yourself that is yours, that no one can ever take from you, that is fully independent of another person, of anyone else's genitals or hands or mouths. It is all you.
It's all me.
It's all you. And I also work with so many women that, believe it or not, which I'm sure because you work with women as well, that have never reached climax. And they might be able to almost get there by themselves, but I also have women that don't even feel comfortable putting their fingers inside of their own body. And I think that has to do with this idea of shame, but also this idea that someone else does that for you. And how fucked up is that?
I know, right?
Yeah. It's not fair. It's not fair.
It's not. And it's just like so much a part of us. It's just the same as like putting my fingers in my fucking nose.
Yeah.
What's the fucking difference?
No, it's no different. But it's under this fucking like fog of shame or things that you're allowed to do or not allowed to do. And I'm grateful for other very empowered women that are just being like, fuck that. That's not real. I don't want to live that way. And if we don't want to live that way, there's other people that don't want to live that way, but they're just waiting for someone to tell them that it's okay.
Yeah.
And I love that you're doing that.
Thank
you're
you.
loud about it.
I have to be.
Yeah.
This is something that we can't just be quiet about anymore. Plus, we're safe enough to do so now.
Yeah.
So why the fuck not?
I mean, if people are rapping about it and singing about it, and that's okay. You could play that on the radio inside of like a fucking McDonald's.
Yeah,
and then you can't talk to your parent about it. You can't talk to your friends about it. There is still a deep disconnect. That is something that I am so passionate about breaking as well. Because even as a woman, I mean, I don't know what it's like to be an embodied male, but as a woman, this womb is my superpower.
Yeah.
She talks. She contracts. She will one day hold life.
Yeah.
She gives me intuitive whispers. It's something that I would never take away, that disconnection. But maybe that's why people don't want us to be connected, because it disconnects us from our power, and it's easier to control people that aren't empowered, you know?
I believe so. I believe so. There's something dark in, just seeing all the different systems and institutions wanting to control what we get to do with our wombs and our bodies, and then something insidious about that.
Yeah.
Because it was strange to me how, like, I think between maybe 16 and like 20 something, like I started getting like super obsessed about getting to know my body through like lifting and all kinds of things, building muscle, like knowing what to eat and all this stuff. But as I began this journey of like healing my sexuality, I realized like that's just one place I never went to, right? Like I knew what to do to please another person. I knew what to do to look fucking sexy. But if it was just me, I didn't really connect with it. Even just looking at her with a hand mirror was something that I had so much resistance to in the beginning. Talking about her, all that stuff, I had so much fucking resistance. When I was like getting waxed, I would like not look. Why? Yeah. Just beginning to ask myself these questions. Why? When I had like certain issues with like uterine fibroids or whatever, I was fucking terrified because I didn't know what was going on. And so I was at the mercy of like these other doctors who didn't give me any kind of like comfort or assurance or any kind of like nurture, even though I was fucking terrified because it's part of me that kind of feels fucking alien to me. And I was like, that was interesting. But like now I'm like, I know her so well, like, that those whispers, I know when someone is like kind of a trickster, all those things. And it was just right here. It was just waiting for me all this time.
Yeah. Just to drop in and to listen.
Yeah.
I mean, even women get embarrassed to go and get a pap smear and go to a gynecologist and just have a doctor, look at the area. And I think it's because of the shame. And I keep coming back to that word, and it's something that I truly want to smash with a fucking bat. I'm so passionate about helping women not feel shame for their bodies, and also for being sexy for themselves. Like dancing in front of the mirror for you, turning yourself on, feeling your own body, finding your sweet little spotties, and like playing around with all the muscles down there.
Hell yeah. know?
Yeah. I mean, a friend recently taught me that you can isolate the 4 walls of your vagina.
Yeah.
And just like do a little
You
dance
can like squeeze
down
here,
there.
squeeze there, squeeze
Yeah.
here, squeeze there.
And like see what happens. And that's just awakening so much root energy that can just slither its way on up. And yeah, it's all connected. And it's all, I think that once people start to connect with that power, then they will never look back.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you can.
No, I don't think you
No,
can.
I don't think you can.
No.
It's like you can't close that door anymore.
Yeah.
And so you just gotta keep sharing it until everyone gets on the same level.
Yeah. And you know, I work with so many women who I talk about all this stuff with my patients because I need to know. I need to know their relationship with their body, especially if anyone is coming to me with any type of womb, anything, period cramps, irregular periods, you know, just low back pain, constipation, anything that has anything to do with the womb. I need to ask them their connection because I think a lot of us, even if we don't think that we encountered sexual trauma, I think it's obvious when we have, but even certain situations in which you're having sex and you didn't want to, or you're having sex with someone that you don't even necessarily want to, or, you know, any of these things, your body still goes, no.
Yeah.
And your brain disconnects from your body. And as a result, that part of you goes, oh, she doesn't listen. So let's just stop.
Yeah.
Let's just stop talking as loudly.
shut down.
So it silences. And then it leads to this inability to even feel pleasure because you're so neurologically disconnected. And how many individuals I know that are just numb
100%.
in that area?
Yeah.
You got to wake her up. I always ask my patients, I go, do you masturbate? And some of them like turn bright red. And I'm like,
Yeah.
do you masturbate? It's a question. I don't know. And then if not, I'm like, you should. Yes.
And it can look like so many ways, right? Like you said, the numbing, even I experienced that because at a period of time, like I couldn't get to sleep without like pleasuring myself. And so just like go off with that vibrator over my hands and like my clitoris until it got to a point where I couldn't fucking like feel anything. And then that just led me to even, you know, being a lot harder and rougher with myself because I was like, I need to like, this is the only way I can relax. And I was like, oh. And then now, just knowing so many ways I can pleasure myself that doesn't involve that. And I also, you know, spent a period of like a year, like a clitoral fast where I just didn't do that just so that I'll like let her fucking chill a little bit for all the whole like decade of abuse. So, self-inflicted. Gave her a little rest. I'm like, you can chill, girls. I'll explore the other parts. And I'm so glad that I did because now there are just so many other like juicy areas that I've discovered, you know, and that I get to even like communicate with my partners too, because a lot of times like, I don't know, I feel like the clitoris has been highlighted so much that, okay, everybody knows how to find it now. It's not a conversation if you can't find it.
Hopefully. They can
Hopefully. But then now there's these other spaces too that we get to explore, and it's like a whole new fucking world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. And that's like a deep level of intimacy that you had with yourself so that you could share that. But so many individuals have never had that. And then unfortunately, a lot of men get their sex education from porn.
Yeah.
So then they think that a woman likes to be treated in a certain way. And it couldn't be further from the truth that most things that people see in porn, it not only doesn't turn me on, but it doesn't give me pleasure. So I think that so many people, then if that sexual encounter isn't how they saw it in porn, they go, oh, it wasn't good, or she isn't whatever, you know, and really it's just because of that false knowledge. And it's acting and it's I think it's destroying a lot of partnerships and just even the foundations of creating a good partnership, even the sounds and the things that are not authentic to being a human in their sexual power. So I just did want to take a little note on that.
No, for sure. Like that, how that creates this expectation of how things should be. Everything from how your genitals are supposed to look like, you know, the colors, labia length and all that, like, and then feeling bad if like, you know, my fucking vulva isn't like nice and like tucked in, and that's something that I had to like take a look at too, like wait a minute, they're different, all these different variations of vulvas, and they're all actually so fucking beautiful.
Different flowers.
Exactly. And I didn't know that before. I thought like, oh shit, Oh.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It should just be, tucked away forever.
Yeah.
And no one can see it. But
hide her.
Yeah. And then everything from also like, different penises. Some are curved, some are, all kinds
all shapes, sizes, colors.
Exactly. And they're all okay.
Yes. I mean, we're different colors, so how could we not expect our vulvas to be different colors? I'm a very different color than my mom. And my mom, I've always been able to say anything to this woman, and I am forever grateful for that. And I remember, when I first started having sex and stuff, I told her, like, it was always something that we could talk about. And I remember when I went through puberty, my whole body changed, as all of ours did, and mine became purple. And I was like, Mom, mine's not pink anymore. It's purple. And I remember looking at hers and looking at mine, and I was like, something's wrong. She's like, no, it's not. There's nothing wrong. And I'm so grateful that she said that. And then even growing up, women, we have the same body, but a lot of women don't even feel comfortable changing around each other. Going to, a spa in which you're naked around each other, just because there is this underlying feeling of shame that I have to hide this. This is for my partner and my partner only, or whatever fucking bullshit we say. And once I became a doctor and started doing pap smears and doing pelvic exams, it was the first time in my life that I saw all the different genitals. And I was pretty blown away because they are so different. And a lot of them don't look like mine because mine is unique and beautiful, as is yours, as are all of ours. And instead of wishing that all of ours looked like someone on porn, if we just celebrated our bodies and loved our bodies in that way. But even men, I've heard them, say just interesting comments about women's bodies, and other women say different things about each other's bodies, and it's all just rooted in shame, and it's rooted in, insecurity, I think.
Yeah. And when I hear comments like that, and I've had an experience like this just maybe like a year ago, we were like partying, and then there was this guy who was like talking about this girl, blah, 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 and like her vulva, and I'm like, side eye, and I'm like, you really don't know, do you?
No.
Baby boy.
Sweet child.
You
don't know.
It's a whole world out there.
It's a whole world
of puss.
A whole world of puss out there for you to explore, or not.
Or just stay there. That's fine too.
Yeah, it is. To each their own, but you won't be seeing mine. That's for damn sure. Only respectful eyes.
Exactly.
Get to see this body. But it starts with respect for yourself too.
100%.
Yeah,
because I feel like, embodying the sexy is not about the look of it all, right? Because this shit is fucking temporary. I'm gonna, grow old and, have a bunch of wrinkles and things are gonna sag in various places and all that stuff. But does that mean that I stop being sexy when that happens? No, right? It's like it's a way of being and how I carry myself. It's almost like living from turn on the inside out. And it fucking bleeds into everything that I do. It can even bleed into my jujitsu. I'm just like fucking people up and like feeling sexy while I'm strangling someone as he's gurgling between my legs.
Yes. I mean, that statement was sexy to me. So I would say so. Ooh, yes. And even this act of being sexy, I've gotten some interesting feedback for the way that I dance. And I love dancing and I love my body. And that is for me.
Yeah.
It is all for me. I feel sexy when I look at myself in the mirror. I feel confident when I look at myself in the mirror. I have fun. I feel feminine and flowy. And I think that even a woman walking down the street, even if she was in a thong or in booty shorts, someone goes, oh, she's trying to get attention. What if she's just doing that because it makes her feel confident, makes her feel good in her body, and that is our right to do that. So I also just felt the need to get that off my chest, that being sexy is for no one but yourself.
Exactly.
And other people can benefit from it, but be inspired by it, but it's not for them.
It's not wrong to want validation from other people either.
No.
If that is something that also comes up, and like, it's not wrong either.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Leo. I love attention.
Fuck yeah.
I
love Leo moon. Me too.
Yes. It's no problem. But for the most part of it, I think that someone would assume that if a woman in her power, confident in her body, must be doing it to get attention, when that is usually not the case. It's just someone that has worked really hard to get to that place. And it's truly to empower others and to walk the walk so that other people can show up in their full power.
Yeah, it's just allowing yourself to be seen in that state so that you can attract people who possibly also want that too. you
like
know?
Us.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
we're drawn to each other.
Yeah, and all the booty shakings and everything.
Oh God, I love shaking the ass.
So
Love
good.
it. Love it. Love it. Love it. I just had a hilarious image of once I decided that I wanted to start to learn how to twerk because I grew up being a ballerina. It's a very different way of moving your body. You're precise, you're lifted, you're structured. And then twerking, you're literally letting your ass muscle go and just shaking that shit around.
Yeah.
And I remember when I would practice at home, my mom's like, I want to try. And my mom, I just have an image of her just with her hands on her thighs, just trying to twerk. Oh, I love her. Love that woman.
I love it.
Yeah.
One of my goals would be to teach my mom how to twerk. Because, like, she came to visit. She surprised me. She came to visit in December. And she was staying in an Airbnb, but we had to come back to my place to pick up some food because I was going to roast a whole leg of lamb and I left it in my fridge. And so she came by my apartment. I have just like this, giant pole in the middle of my fucking living room. And I was like, she ready for it? I don't know. We'll fuck her and find out.
Yeah.
And she walks in. I'm like, look, Mom, it's my pole. As I'm like preparing the things and I turn around, she's like, playing with it. She like puts her hand on it and like starts swinging her leg. I'm like, Mama! And I was like, that was just the like single most healing thing that she had done. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible, because I didn't think that she'd be like open to it or even, but she was like playful with me, and through that also it's like miracles happen.
Yes.
I've been experiencing her relax a lot more around me since I started being like super open and honest with her with where I'm at, what I'm navigating. I was open and honest with her with like the sex addiction recovery. I was open and honest with her around, wanting to know the answers behind the female genital cutting. I was open and honest with her with our relationship for a long time. And also, we went through a period of navigating some family challenges because I decided to do an interfaith marriage where, I didn't want or need Eric to go and convert just to marry me. And obviously that was something that my entire family wanted. And I was like, I'm not going to do that, and I'm so happy that I did all those things to just honor myself, because just realizing how all of my life has been just serving other people, doing things that other people wanted, and then feeling like I didn't even know myself because all my life has been about other people. And then since coming over here and doing all this healing work, recovery work, looking at my shit, my part in everything that I had created, like I just had to stand my ground. And that led to maybe a period of like her not really talking to me. There was a little bit of like disconnection there, but she finally came around. And just our relationship is just so much more real right now, even though we have like all these different differences, and also that ripple effect that created for my younger sister, and just being able to speak her truth too. It's just so beautiful to like see where we are now with all the women in the family, and also seeing how that rippled into my cousins and all that shit. Like my mom is one of 11 children, and so I have a shit ton of cousins, and some of them are female and or women, and just I don't know, they've been following me for a little bit, and I can see too like how they're stepping into their own version of womanhood as well, that looks different from our mothers, and it's just so beautiful to see that ripple effect.
It really is. It's gorgeous. And I mean, I think that as children, and I don't have a child, but I think that even, teacher and student, you think that there's this hierarchy, but really we're all just humans trying to figure it out. Our parents are just big babies that are trying to figure it out. they teach us lessons, we teach them lessons. And it's this underlying understanding that the love is stronger than any lesson, so that you have safety to share openly and honestly and to watch the ripples happen. And to say that is your version of showing up in this world. This is in alignment with your truth. That's not mine. This is my truth. Will you still love me as I stand in it? And
Exactly.
just the image of your mom, just flying here, hand on the bow, kicking around. That probably was so freeing for her.
Oh my God. Just seeing her let loose.
Yes. And it's play, right? It's just being adults that are playing, and we have no idea what's going on. We're trying to just figure it out, and we have to be able to have fun, and sex is fun.
Hell yeah.
It's really fun. It's one of my favorite games. And if we don't allow ourselves to have fun in all aspects of our life, how can we expect to have fun in one of the most intimate things that we're having with another person?
Exactly.
Yeah, that we're choosing to have with another person. Yeah, there's so much there. And I think that you are changing your whole family lineage just by being yourself and having the courage to do it. So I also just want to admire that in you, because it does take a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of strength, and it takes a lot of just self-love and making yourself right, not making yourself wrong, not shaming yourself, because we can do that. We can shame ourselves.
I'm an expert at that.
Yeah, we don't need anyone else to do it. We can shame ourselves into being paralyzed, and until you decide again, almost like that idea of addiction, that you do it until you realize that you don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I don't think I really recognized that for me. I was so stuck in so many unhealthy patterns. I had such terrible anxiety, depression. I have a history with attempting to kill myself, all sorts of really heavy things. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I recognized through my love of movement, through my yoga practice, through breathing, through dancing and dropping into my body, that I could almost hover above it and see that those were just these cyclical reflexogenic patterns that I could choose if I wanted to hop off of that, if I wanted to just do something different. And the fun thing about the brain is that when you choose to do something different, at first it's really hard. It takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
But then you can lean into that and it becomes easy.
Yeah.
So it's just choosing what you want to break and having enough power to do it, or to not until you don't want to anymore.
Exactly. And I feel like, movement is a great vehicle for that, and just kind of like practicing feeling what that active choice looks like within your body, right? Where you're able, being in your body and moving around is just, you're present to it already, period, right? Your senses are alive, you're feeling sensations on your skin, you're feeling the muscles move through your body. And then sometimes, and for me, that was the only way that I could be with myself without feeling like I was trapped, before, like, it would be so fucking painful to sit in meditation for like even 3 minutes, so movement was the first way getting into my body with all of that. And at the time, I think I started getting into more mindful way of moving as I was nursing a spine injury from being a meathead powerlifting. Like going into my peaking phase in powerlifting because I was preparing for a meet. I'm like, I'm just gonna do this jiu-jitsu tournament. Well, getting back to training, and my powerlifting coach, they told me not to do the jiu-jitsu competition, but I did it anyway because I had to fuck around and find out, right? But so I found out.
Yeah.
I fucking found out. Couldn't lift an empty bar without pain, so that led me to like 6 months of like, all right, I gotta relearn how to use my body. And that was the first time that I started even like uncovering emotions that was stored in my body, with like, how I was like beating myself up for not being able to do this thing, or beating myself up for even being in pain. I'm like, I shouldn't be feeling this pain, I should be stronger than this, blah 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 blah.
Sure.
And then making the choices that are in alignment with like what my body actually needs versus what I want. And then doing that over and over and over and over again, and then starting to see results, and you're like, oh, this is why I do it.
This is why.
And then just slowly expand that bit by bit, until it doesn't just exist within my movement practice, but also everywhere else, right?
It's like respecting your own boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Not gaslighting yourself.
Yeah. It's easy to do that. All these things that we blame other people We can do them all to ourselves, no problem.
We probably do it to ourselves first.
I agree. I agree. And then it feels familiar. So then when it happens in another way, we don't even recognize that it's happening. At first, at least. Yeah. Powerful. So since you work closely with women and one-on-one, I'm sure, and then also in community settings, what are some of your favorite ways for gorgeous babes to start to drop into this side of themselves and start to explore?
There's this framework that I share with my clients called the 4Ms. So movement, it's literally, and this can look like so many ways, right? Movement, it could be dance, it could be jujitsu, it could be just, let's say if you're depressed, right? And it's difficult to get out of bed. Movement can be just getting out of bed, like getting showered, making yourself a meal, right? Doing something that gets you into your body one way or another. Could be a walk while you're listening to tunes. And then mindfulness is where you connect with yourself in some way. It could be sitting in meditation. It could be sitting in nature, and or journaling too, where I'm essentially talking to myself. Like, I cannot tell you how much journaling has helped me just get to know myself, and I'm just like free writing, and allowing whatever snot, tears, food, stains on the page. Like, who cares? It's like my shit, right? Blood. When my bleed, you know, that feels so good too. And then meaning, connection with people outside of you, like calling up a friend, talking about the things that you've been holding for some time. Or if you don't have people like that, there are lots of circles that offer that space, right? For me, I found that through 12-step programs, and you know, if that's something that you don't really identify with or find comfort in, there are also other ways that you can seek community, right? Basically just getting out of yourself, calling a close friend or your grandma or something, I don't know, whoever feels safe for you. And then lastly is like mastery, where you spend time, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 2 hours, diving into something that fucking lights you up inside, like gives you pleasure from the inside. If it's fucking crochet or or reading about praying mantis, whatever. Just spend some time like scratching that itch, you know, and connecting to yourself in that way. And I think it's important too, right? And this is coming from the understanding of how, like, sometimes sexual trauma, when you've experienced sexual trauma, it can be so scary to even like think about, I'm gonna look at my own pussy in the mirror. That might be like a hard no in the nervous system. But you can also still expand your ranges of pleasure by diving into things like that, making yourself a meal that you fucking love from your childhood, and fully being immersed in the whole process of chopping up all the little vegetables and really savoring every fucking minute of it. Like, you're expanding your range of pleasure. When you're eating the food, you're like tasting, feeling it go down your body. That's expanding your ranges of pleasure. Like, maybe you're catching a live band and you're allowing yourself to move, or even just instead of just being still, you're moving your head, and it begins with just that, and you realize like, oh, people are grooving with me, and then over time you expand that. So there's no one like solution to it, right? But doing what actually feels fucking juicy and true to you, you know, and allowing yourself to receive support and asking for support. It's okay to ask for support if you don't know. You're not wrong or bad or broken for not knowing how to navigate this on your own. Like, fucking, I didn't know what to do either. You know, so it's all good. They'll probably be met with so much love and understanding and support too. You know, when you come from just that openness. And so just an invitation to keep your heart open to and leaning in, kind of like following your turn on, right? Whatever it is that brings you joy, whatever it is that makes you feel a little tingly on the inside, and trusting that, instead of the voice of fear of or I shouldn't do this, or I shouldn't. Stop shitting on yourself.
Yeah.
Period.
Yes. Yes, sis. Yes.
Please.
Please stop shitting on yourself.
For real.
Only let yourself up. And I love a lot of what you said in that. I think that some people think that a lot of this work has to be so complicated, or even being embodied has to be complicated. Being someone that meditates is something that is really challenging for some people to wrap their head around, but you can meditate on anything. It's just being fully present in that moment. Like you said, cutting up the vegetables, watching yourself cut them, hearing the sound of the knife on the cutting board, putting them slowly into the pan, listening to the sizzle, smelling the herbs as they, come to life in the oil, and just being fully present in your body. You can experience pleasure in every moment. Even one of my most pleasure-filled activities is laying in the sun and just feeling the sun on my skin. Even imagining it right now brings me joy. So
I'm already picturing like the beads of sweat trickling down, and I feel it. I'm like, ooh,
tickle. Yes. And the sun it's shining on everyone, but your ability to feel pleasure towards it is just your choice to feel it in that moment. And we can do that in any way, in any time. So I love that you said that, and inspired me, and praying that it's sunny out when we leave here, even though it's probably not. We're in San Diego for like 2 weeks.
I missed it.
That's okay.
I miss it so much.
I know. We're going to the jungle, girl. We're going to the jungle.
I need to.
Well, Azimah, this conversation was amazing. I truly want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being open to share your story, because truly it is incredibly powerful. And I know that so many women listening to this podcast are going to receive the medicine of your story, and they are going to be so inspired to have honest conversations with themselves and to get more in touch with themselves in a way that maybe they haven't felt safe to before. So I'm going to absolutely leave your contact stuff in the notes of this podcast so you can all check her out. However, I always ask that the humans that I sit across from the table with, that we end with something from your heart, whether that is a love bomb for someone out there, for your community, anything at all, a knowledge bomb of something that you've learned along your journey that you want to share, a truth bomb, just something that you're passionate about, truly anything that's on the surface.
Okay. So this came out to me in meditation this past week, and it was following a very intimate conversation with me and my husband Eric, where he shared with me some stuff that I knew was scary for him to share. And what came to me in meditation was, the more I hide myself, the more I take away the possibility of another person growing in love. Because we attach to like how they're gonna like pull away and all these negative consequences, but we also tend to take away the possibility of them growing more into love. And with that download came, I was like, oh, holy shit, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Love. I think we all are capable of so much. We just tend to forget. And so I love you people. Thank you for listening, and love you. Thank you for giving me this space, and you make it so easy for me to drop in and share everything, because you stare right into my soul, and if I hold anything back, I think you'll know. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm not running away. I'm here.
Well, I am so grateful that the universe pulled us together, that you are shiny and beautiful, and I was drawn to you, and I was going to demand that we were friends. So I'm happy that you felt mutual.
Same.
And that you are also open to share, because everything that we discussed today is, it's taboo. It's things that not everyone talks about. It takes a very strong, confident woman to speak about it. So thank you for being you, and for doing all the work that you did to get you to this point to share this story.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks for listening, gorgeous familia. See you soon.
See you.